Hi guys, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to create more realistic looking trees using Blender 2.8 and the Sapling add-on. I'll briefly be going through how to use the Sapling add-on, and also if you've used the Sapling add-on before, I'll be showing you why the current method of creating trees using the Sapling add-on won't really give you realistic results, and also how to go about doing it. Before I begin the tutorial, I just wanted to quickly let you know about Skillshare. It's an online learning community with over 25,000 classes in design, business, and more. Based on the classes I've taken, Skillshare classes tend to be bite-sized and quicker to finish, therefore allowing you to skill up really fast in whatever it is that you want to skill up in. You can find a whole bunch of classes that may interest you. There's a whole bunch of classes covering the newly released Blender 2.8, including the new real-time render engine Eevee, and also the new 2D animation toolset. I also put out premium classes on Skillshare, many of which you won't find on my YouTube channel. Best of all, premium membership gives you access to any of the 25,000 classes, and you only pay less than $10 a month, which is super duper affordable. If you're interested in trying out Skillshare, go ahead right now and click on the link in the description below to get 2 months of Skillshare absolutely free. Yep, whether you're interested to know how to create photorealistic real-time environments, or even checking out my newest premium class, How to Master the New 3D Modeling Tools in Blender, you can learn right now absolutely free. But you'll need to hurry up and sign up via the link in the description, as this promotion won't last forever. Now on with the tutorial. The first thing we need to do is we need to enable the Sapling add-on in Blender 2.8. Don't worry, it's a free add-on that comes shipped with Blender 2.8. So all you need to do is to go to Edit, Preferences, search for Sapling, and you will see something called the Sapling Tree Generator. Go ahead and tick that. By default, I already have it ticked, but your version may not have that. So go ahead and tick that, and now you have the Sapling Tree add-on enabled in Blender 2.8. So first of all, I'm just going to go ahead and remove all of this. So hit A and then X, delete. So let's start fresh. To generate a tree in our scene, all we need to do is go Shift A, Curve, Sapling Tree Generator. Alternatively, you can also go here, Add, Curve, Sapling Tree Generator. Straight away, you'll see this little option over here called the Sapling Add Tree option. Go ahead and click that arrow to expand it out. And now you have an entire menu dedicated to making modifications to this tree. So you can play around with the settings and properties of this tree to give it different looks and feels. Like you can change the geometry, you can change the radius of the branches, you can change the branch splitting, all these other technical stuff like branch growth, pruning, if you want to add leaves, and armature, if you want to work on animation, and things like that. Now I'm not going to go through all these settings in this tutorial because this is not really focused on the Sapling add-on. This is mostly focused on creating a realistic tree. So maybe later on I can create a dedicated video to the Sapling Tree add-on, but I'm not going to focus on these settings here. But just know that if you play around with these settings, you can give it different looks. Like for example, if I go to branch radius and I change the radius of the tree, I can make the tree look fatter or skinnier. I can also maybe play around with the branch itself. So let me go back to the normal. I can also play around with the branch splitting. If I add different levels, we can get more variations to the tree. If I add more base splits, it just tells you how much the tree will split from the trunk. Again, these are stuff that you can probably find online in some documentation what these buttons mean. These are all related to the rotation angle and things like that. If you want to add leaves, you just go to leaves, press, if you want to show it as hexagonal, that's fine. Press show leaves, and it'll be a bit slow. And you'll see straight away it'll add 150 leaves to our scene. So that's it. That's pretty much the gist of creating a basic tree. If I move this aside and I add in another tree, add curve Sapling Tree Generator, I can also go to say geometry and I can load in different presets. So if I want a willow tree, I can create something like that, which is really big. If I want to create a weeping willow, I can create something like that. So we can get different looks. This is a pine tree. If you want to create something like a Christmas tree, you can get different types of trees. So that's pretty much the bare basics of adding a tree using the Sapling add-on, and also modifying the properties of the tree using the menu option. Bear in mind that if you add a tree to your scene and then you go into your 3D viewport and do some other operation, like say even as simple as right clicking, you lose the menu option over here and you can't modify a tree anymore. So the menu option disappears forever. When you want to add a tree to your scene, make sure that you first add a tree to your scene and then straight away play around with the settings to give it the look that you want. Because after you make some modification to your scene, it is destructive. You can't go back and change the settings again. That's just how the sapling add-on works. So that's it. That's the bare basics of how the sapling tree generator works. If you render this out, I mean, it does look okay in the 3D viewport, but it does not give you realistic looking trees when you render it out. So let me demonstrate that using an example. If I just give a simple material to this one, we'll call this one the tree trunk, and we'll give it a sort of tree trunk kind of a color, maybe a dark brown. And then we'll also show the same one in the viewport display. Control C, Control V. We don't need any smoothness for that one, we'll just make it more rough. And we'll apply it to each of these ones. So this will be the tree trunk, this will be the tree trunk. And then for the leaves, we'll just give it a nice greeny texture, like the color of leaves. I don't know, something like that, maybe a little darker. And then copy this, Control C, into the viewport display, and then apply it to each of our models. Call this the leaves. Okay, so we have something that looks like this. When you render it out, let's just add in a simple sun lamp, light sunlight. Okay, so it's a very basic setup of our scene. We'll obviously make it look more realistic later on. So ignoring the shading of this tree itself, just looking at the model of the tree itself, it doesn't look realistic. When you look at real pictures of trees, you don't see leaves like this hanging off the main branches like that. What you see with, especially with bigger trees, that the trees tend to come in clumps of big ovals. So basically, if we break down the anatomy of a realistic tree, especially a big tree, we tend to find that the main branches tend to go out like this, which is fine. That's what the sapling tree add-on does for us anyway. But the leaves that come off these main branches tend to be clumped together in these big circular kind of shapes, the circle ovalish type of shapes. And the problem with the Blender sapling add-on version of it is the leaves tend to come out of the main branches like this. They don't come in these circular ovally clumps, they just dangle off the main branches, and that's not realistic at all. Like this one as well, it's just dangling off the main branches. So in this image example over here, it's like saying these little leaves are dangling off the main branches like this all the way to the end, and that doesn't help us to give a realistic look of a large massive tree. So what should we do to help fix this problem? Well, we should create a clump of leaves in a sort of ball or an ovalish type of shape and use that to dangle off these main branches over here. And that will help to give it the appearance of a more larger, more realistic looking tree. So that's the secret to creating more realistic trees that a lot of newer artists don't know about. So whenever newer artists create trees looking like this using the sapling add-on, they don't realize that it doesn't look that realistic to the eye. So now let's go ahead and make more realistic looking trees that doesn't look like it was generated using the sapling tree add-on. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate the sapling add-on at all. I will actually be using the sapling add-on to help me create more realistic looking trees. It's just that I find that a lot of artists don't really know how to use the tool well enough to create nicer looking trees. So now let's go ahead and start creating more realistic and more larger looking trees. So let's just quickly hide out what we've created so far, our amateur looking sapling generated trees. So just click this eye and just hide everything. Also this as well. All of this. Okay, so that they're not in the scene anymore. And I might go ahead and create a new collection and call this one we'll call this one main tree. Okay, so we have a new collection like that. In this collection, I'm going to go ahead and create a new tree. So we'll leave the sunlight there, it'll be pretty helpful for us. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to design a realistic looking leaf. So the leaf that I want to create is purely going to come from a texture. The texture that I'm going to be using comes from textures.com. You can create a free account and download any of these images that you want. Find any type of leaf that you like for your tree and go ahead and download those images. The texture that I ended up using was, I think, this one. So I went ahead and downloaded the albedo, the height, the normal, the roughness, the translucency, and also the alpha. So download one each of these images and save it in a directory somewhere. Once you have those images, we're going to be enabling another add-on in Blender. So go to Edit, Preferences, and this time we're going to be using the Images as Planes add-on. Again, by default, I had that ticked on, but yours might not. So go ahead and check that if it isn't ticked. Once you've done that, just close that out. Let's go Shift A, Images as Planes, and start to load in the images that you downloaded. Okay, so the image I'm going to be using is the albedo.tif. So import images as planes, and let's go ahead and do some fix-ups to this leaf texture. So I'm going to go to UV editing, and I want to change this one to the textured mode. Okay, so straight away we can see that we have a simple plane with our texture applied automatically, which is great. So this is going to be our leaf. So we don't need to do any kind of real shaping to our leaf to make it look like a leaf. We can just use this image over here. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go to Control R and add in a loop cut right in the middle over here, because I don't want to have this side of the leaf. I just want to have only one side of the leaf, and I guess this is the back side of the leaf, so I want to only be using the front side of the leaf. So let's go ahead and select these two vertices and go ahead X, delete vertices, so that you have the leaf like this. Cool. Next thing we want to do is we want to select all our vertices by hitting A, or you can go to select all, that does the same thing, and then just move your entire mesh until this little orange dot that pretty much goes in line with the stem of the leaf. Just a little bit, not right at the tip, but maybe just a little bit higher, somewhere around there. Okay, we'll have something that looks like that. Now I want to add a little bit of shaping to our leaf, so I'm going to go ahead and hit Control R and add in a loop and slide it just over here. So Control R, click and slide, just so that this loop goes in line with this leaf line over here. And I'm also going to add some horizontal lines over here. So Control R, scroll up 2 times to add in 3 cuts. You can also increase the number of cuts over here. And then we have a topology that looks like that. So I'm going to go ahead and select these vertices over here along the edges, and then I'm just going to go ahead and hit G, Z, and move it down a little, like so. So just sort of shaping out what our leaf will look like. Now I want to go ahead and select these 3 vertices over here. Let's turn on proportional editing and change this from smooth to sphere, and then let's scroll down to turn down the influence and hit G, Z to move it up on the Z-axis. So we're just really just shaping out our leaf. So now we've got a very basic looking leaf, but a leaf is not square, and we don't want to have this random bit of green stuff coming around like this. So we just want to cut it out to the shape of the leaf. So luckily in textures.com we've got an alpha map over here, so we can make use of that in our texture. So let's go ahead and go to the shading workspace. Let's go ahead and save just in case something crashes. Perfect. Now I'm going to go ahead and start to change the texture out a bit. Now I'm not going to use a diffuse shader throughout this tutorial. I'm going to be using the new principled shader that comes with Blender 2.8. I think the images as plane add-on was here before Blender 2.8, and by default it uses diffuse, so that's why it added us a diffuse shader for us. But we don't need that. Oops, I added in a principled volume. It should be principled BSDF. Connect the color to the base color and the BSDF to this mix shader over here, and we have something that looks like that. Now the transparent shader will be helpful for us to help to remove this outline over here. So all we need to do is just load in the image to control which parts of it should be transparent. So I'm going to hit Shift D to duplicate the image texture, and then just change this image texture by clicking this folder icon, and this time we'll use the alpha.tif, this image over here, the black and white one. Connect the color into this factor, and now we have the other parts removed. The problem is we're using the Eevee rendering engine over here, and Eevee shows this transparent part as black. So we need to tell Eevee that this material should have transparency. So go to the material tab over here, and under the blend mode, change from opaque to alpha blend. And straight away it fixes out that issue, and we can see through our leaf. Perfect. So let's perfect this texture even more. We want to now include in the other textures that came along in textures.com. So I'm going to hit duplicate, and we'll start out by adding in, let's say, the roughness. So connect the roughness to the roughness node. So now our leaf should look more shinier. Also in the 3D viewport, let's go W shade smooth, like that, so it looks a lot more smoother. And right now it has a lot of even smoothness, which doesn't look right. So we'll go ahead and fix that a little bit later. Let's just go ahead and complete our shader. So duplicate the shader now, and let's bring in the normal. So this will control the bump. So I'm going to go to vector normal map and connect the color into the color. Change the color space of this from sRGB to non-color data, and connect the normal into the normal. So you have something that looks like that, a proper leaf. Finally, let's also add in this other texture over here, the translucency. And the translucency we will have to mix with another shader. So I'm going to go Shift A, shader, translucent BSDF, and then let's duplicate this mix shader, Shift D, and connect it over here. Connect the translucent shader. Let's now mix in the translucent shader with the final shader. And I'm going to be using this image texture as the input for the translucency. But right now it looks like the transparency part is not working properly. That's because we need to add the transparency last and also before the translucency that applied. So let me just change the ordering of that one around. Maybe we'll move this one over here and this one over here. Connect the transparent to this shader, like so, and connect the translucency to this one. So I'm not really doing anything special, I'm just changing the ordering around. Let's move this color into this factor, and and remove this link over here. And I think the ordering of this one should now be fixed. Oops, let's change this one to be the other way around. Cool. So we've added a bit of translucency to our leaf as well. Translucency simply means that you can see some light coming through the leaf. Since this leaf is relatively thick, I guess there's not much translucency going on. And also I guess our light is quite light as well. Our basic shader for our leaf is now complete. If you want to control the smoothness of this leaf even further, just go to Shift A, converter color ramp, and add it in between there. And then just use one of these sliders to control how smooth. So that makes it look really smooth. Maybe we want to tone down the smoothness a little, make it look more like a realistic leaf. Something like that. Looks a bit more realistic. Okay, just a little bit of control on that aspect. Okay, so the leaf is now done, and I guess I'll call this one the leaf, just for naming purposes. Let's go ahead and save your work. Next, we're going to create the twig for our leaf. So let's go back to the modeling, and let's tab out of edit mode for that leaf, and let's start to create a basic twig. So I'm just going to move this out of the way real quick, and let's go Shift A, curve, Sapling Tree Generator. Now I want to create a very basic twig for our leaf, so we don't need to have all this geometry going on. It's too complicated. So let's go to branch splitting and turn the levels all the way down to the lowest, 1, and base splits all the way to the lowest, 0. And let's go ahead and just leave it like that. Right now if I tab into edit mode, it's all curves. So I don't want to make I don't really care about curves as much. So I want to convert this into an actual mesh. So let's go to F3, convert to, you want to go convert to mesh from a curve. So hit enter, and right now it's now a proper mesh. You can have a twig that has this type of shape, or you can create different variations of different types of twigs. So I might go with just 2 for this tutorial. So let's go Shift D and create a variation over here. Maybe for this one I'll remove all these linked ones. So let's go select one of these vertices over here and go Control L to remove this and also turn off proportional editing. So we want to remove this bit over here. So go X, delete vertices. And also I think there's too much vertex data going on here, so I guess we can simplify that even further. So go to Add Modifier, Decimate, and we want to remove the number of faces from 192 to maybe we can to something really low, maybe 0.2. And apply. So that just reduces the poly count a lot. It does ruin the topology of our twig a lot, but I guess in this case we don't really care about topology as much because this part won't really be seen in close-up. So now let's turn on proportional editing again and make some minor adjustments to make our twig look a little bit more interesting. Let's select this and move it around like so. Straighten out a little bit. I think that looks okay. Similar for this one as well. We can just maybe give it a little bit more of an interesting shape. And let's also use a decimate modifier to reduce the poly counts quite a bit. 0.2. So that'll just reduce the number of vertices in this. Even though the topology of the twig is ruined, we want to keep the vertex count very, very low. Okay, so let's go ahead and name this one Twig 1 and this one Twig 2. We're going to create a new collection for this one. I want to call this one Twigs. And let's click and drag this twig into this collection, the twigs, so that under the twig collection we have these 2 twigs. Cool. So next up we're just going to go ahead and finish off the twig by adding in our leaves. So let's go to material view, and for the twig let's just use a new material, and I want to create a new material called twig or something like that, and let's for now just use a brownish color. I want to also copy that into the viewport display. Control C, Control V. I want to turn up the roughness quite a bit, and we'll also use the same texture for this one as well, twig. And cool, so now we're just going to go in and stick the leaf onto this twig. So let's go Shift D and move this over here, RXX over here. Let's scale it up quite a bit, like so. And I'm just going to stick it onto the twig. So let's go into edit mode. We can select that one, Shift S, cursor to selected, select this one, Shift S, selection to cursor. So we can position it exactly in place like that, and move it a little bit. Maybe move it a little bit higher. Or maybe go RXX and rotate it around like that. Or should I just go along with this line? I'm just gonna go right now and simply just add the leaves to the twig. So I probably want to go in time-lapse mode. So I'm not doing anything really fancy. I'm just adding leaves to my twig. So now that I have the twigs set up, I want to join them all into one mesh. So all you need to do is simply select everything and hit Control J. Oh, active object is not a selected mesh, so you need to select one object to be the active mesh. Hit Control J. And also, once you've done that, you need to tab into edit mode, so that you have your entire mesh like that, and position it so that the the tip of the stem is around where this orange center line is. So make sure it looks okay from the front and the side as well. Like so. So it has to be right in the center. I'm also putting it slightly above. I'm not putting right on the tip over there, I'm putting it slightly above, just to give it a bit of buffer when we add the particle system. Do the same for this one as well. Select all and move them into place like so. Yeah, that's looking okay. Cool, so let me just double check that it's named correctly. Oh no, it's not named correctly. I'm going to call this one Twig 1 again. And this one as Twig 2. And let's move them into the right collection. So our twigs are now done. Now it's time to create that clumped bush of these leaves, that circular ovalish type of shape for these leaves. So I'm just going to move this aside, GX, and move them aside. And let's start to create, let's go Shift S cursor to world origin to put it right in the center again. And let's start to create the little clumping of the leaves. So for that, I'm going to use the sapling add-on again. So go Shift A, curve Sapling Tree Generator. And without further ado, I'm just going to go straight into the branch growth. And I'm going to increase the second part over here, the length, to go out wide, like so. And in the branch splitting, I'll turn the trunk height to 0. We don't want to have much height for the trunk, and the split height to 0 as well. I guess I want to make it a little bit more wider, so I'm going to go to branch growth and maybe just increase the length of that a little bit more. I'll go back to geometry again, and I'll call this one the clumped bush preset, and we'll hit export preset. So now we have that as an option over here, clumped bush. Okay, so that's cool. We'll use that export a little bit later on, but for now I'm just going to go ahead and give it a twig texture. And we're going to now add in the twigs to our clumped little bush over here. I don't know what's the right terminology. I think this, I'm not really an expert in tree terminology, so I'll just call it the clumped bush. Okay, so for this one I'm going to start to disperse the twigs all around the tree. But first of all, I need to define a weight painting for this one, because I want to be using the particle system. So let's go to the well, first of all I need to convert this into a mesh. So convert to a mesh from a curved text, so we have something like that. And I guess I want to turn down the number of vertices for this one as well, just to preserve poly counts. 28,000 vertices is way too much. Maybe 0.4 will help to save it a little bit. 15,000 verts. 0.2, I don't want to make it, yeah, 9,000 verts was okay. The shape is still holding up fine, so I guess I'll stick to that one. Hit apply, and I guess that's okay. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and add in the twigs to this mesh over here. And to do that, I'm going to be using the particle system. So to use the particle system, we'll go into the particles tab in the properties window, hit the plus, and change this from emitter to hair. Now of course we're not going to render this as hair, we're going to be rendering them as twigs. So straight away I'm going to go down to the render tab, change this from render as path to render as collection. The collection we're going to be using is the twigs. So since we have these two twigs in the collection, it'll be using either one of these two, and we want to pick it at random so that we have a bit more variation. So we have something that looks like that. Cool, it's looking really nice. Also, I want to maybe make it a little bit bigger, and also want to randomize it a little bit. I also wanted to take into account the rotation. And for the rotation, I guess I wanted to modify the rotation a little bit more. So where do I change this rotation? Let's go advanced. Let's turn on rotation. No, that's not right at all. Normal. I think normal is the one that looks the most correct. So I'll stick with the normal. I do want the leaves to come along these edges over here, so I'm going to be using a bit of weight painting to control that even more. So let's go ahead and add in a vertex group and call this one leaves. Okay, let's change this from object mode to weight paint mode, and let's just paint in the areas where there should be leaves. So I'm not getting any, oh, there is some color coming through. To control the weight paint, I guess it's a little bit hard to paint the weights on this one because the twigs are so small. So I want to do this in edit mode. So let's go to edit mode and click show transparent. And I'm just going to color in the areas where I want the leaves to grow. And it has to definitely grow along these edges. So just paint along the edges. So to do that, I hit C on my keyboard to enable the circle select tool. And then I just clicked and dragged and I went around along the tips of the edges. I might increase the influence actually, so that I have more coverage of the branches that I may have missed out. Okay, so once I'm happy with that, let's right click out of that one and then go to the side view and do the same thing, so that we select all the verts that we may have missed, and also we'll go in to the top view and select a bunch of them as well. Okay, so basically we're defining where we want the leaves to grow, and we don't want the leaves to grow in these areas over here. It doesn't make sense for leaves to grow in this area. We go into this object data tab over here and hit assign over there. So now you can see when we go into weight paint mode that these parts are in red to indicate that the leaves vertex group are all in parts in red. So we need to make use of that in the particle system as well. So for the particle system, if I go back over here, sorry, this one, we want to tell Blender that we want the twig to come out from the we want to tell Blender that we want the twig to grow from the particle system where we just define the color. So go to vertex groups, and for the density we want it to be leaves. So the parts where in red will have the leaves growing out, and the parts where well, we didn't paint anything at all, where it's blue, will have no leaves at all. So the growth of the leaves should look a little bit more natural, like so. The size of the leaves depends on how big you want your tree to appear. So if you want to create a really massive looking tree, I suggest you turn the scale down and increase the number of leaves. So in this case, if I go 0.4 and then increase to say 2000, then the tree will appear bigger when you add it onto the tree. And if you want a smaller tree, then turn the scale up and turn this number down. So I'm going to go for a little bit of a massive tree. So I'm going to turn this number down like so. Or not really a massive tree, but a relatively massive tree. So 0.03. Yeah, something like that. Okay, so I think that's looking good. So let's go ahead and create several variations of this. So let's go Shift A and hit Sapling Tree Generator, and I'm going to straight away go to Geometry and load in the clumped bush preset that we created before, which is helpful. And all we need to do is change the random seed to create a different variation, so that we don't have them all looking so uniform. So we have something that looks like that. We go in one more and have the clumped bush with a different seed value, maybe this time a little bit smaller. That's fine. Okay, and we'll do the same thing with each of these ones. So tab into edit, we'll convert all these three, F3, convert to mesh. So we'll go in now and we'll decimate each of these ones. I think we're going to be 0.2. Apply, decimate to 0.2. Apply, decimate this one to 0.2 and apply. Give each of these ones the twig texture, and we'll just create a vertex group for each of these ones to be leaves. And this one as well. Okay, and then we'll go into edit mode, make sure we have show transparent selected, and we just paint in the areas where we want the leaves to grow. Oops, we don't want any of this part over here, but we do want this part. Go from the side view and pretty much do the same thing. Finally go to the top view and do pretty much the same thing. Just go all around. Get more of that coverage. Okay, and finally hit assign. Okay, once you've done that, let's go ahead and use the same particle system for each of them. So if I go to the particle tab, hit plus, I want to reuse that in the initial particle system. Call it the leaves particle system, and we want it to grow from the leaves. Okay, that's looking okay, and do the same for this one as well. We use the leaves one, and we want it to grow from the leaves, and get a new particle system, leaves, and we want to grow out of the leaves. Okay, just to add a little bit more visual interest, I guess we can, oh yeah, there's some random scaling there, which is good. We may also randomize the rotations a little bit. This just helps to add a little bit more variation. Okay, so now we need to convert all of this into its own mesh. So we need to pretty much apply everything. We need to apply the particle system, make them all as one standalone mesh. So to do that, just go into the particle system and hit convert. And then once you've done that, turn off the particle system, remove it. They're all individual meshes. So now that our twigs are separate objects from the actual particle system, we need to do one more thing. We need to make them all as single user. Because right now it's sharing this mesh with 5,957 other twigs. So if I go ahead and join all of this into one mesh, it freezes your computer and really makes it look really, really messy. So in order to solve that problem, we need to first of all just deselect all this and select just the ones we want to join into one mesh. Then go to Object, Relations, Make Single User, Object and Data. Then we say Make Single User for selected objects. Okay, so once you've done that, now we can select the, I don't know, one of these objects, and then, sorry, maybe we'll select the leaf, and then hit Control J. Okay, so now they become one mesh. So I'm going to tab into edit mode really quickly and select everything. Let's just move it. Oh, well, we need to turn off proportional editing because that might slow it down a little bit. We need to move this origin so that it's in line with this orange dot. So my computer might be, your computer might be a little laggy when it does this. Okay, so once you've done that, we have the orange dot right in this center right there. Let's go ahead and name this mesh. I'll just do it over here. We'll call this one the clumped branch 1. Okay, and we'll save our work. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for pretty much each of these ones. Okay, so similar like we did with the twigs, we're going to create a new collection, and we're going to call this one the clumped branches. And we just put each of these clumped branches in the collection. Just drag and drop that there. And now we're going to, just to save our viewport memory, Right now it's using up 3.3 gigs. We're going to just turn all of this view into bounds so that we don't see all this data over here. So let's just change the viewport display from textured to wire, or sorry, bounds. I do the same for each of them. Bounds, oops, and bounds, like so. And now we just move them aside. And now it's time to actually start to create our tree. So I'm just going to move all this stuff aside. So finally we start to create our tree. So go Shift S, cursor to world origin. And what we're going to do is save our work. We're going to go to Shift A, curve, and again we're going to use the Sapling Tree add-on. And here's where you can have the most sort of customizability, the flexibility to the overall shape of your tree. I'm going to go for one of the default ones. Maybe I might go for the Weeping Willow. So this is going to be my large scale tree. Cool, so I think I might just stick with that default over there. And for this one I'll do pretty much the same thing like I've been doing with the other ones. So I'll pretty much just go in and create a new vertex group. First of all, converting this one to a mesh from a curve text and defining exactly where I want the branches to grow out of. We don't want any of this. We don't want the branches to go out of any of this. So we have something like that. Okay, so we will create a new vertex group. We'll call them the branches and assign that. Cool, that's it. Now we'll go to the particle systems tab. Create a new particle systems. Make a type here. Go advanced. Under vertex group, we'll go down to branches. I don't want 1,000s. I want to just keep it to something like 50. Okay, and we're going to say render as type collection, and the collection is going to be our plumped branches, like so. Now if we'll just go pick random. Okay, let me just go and change this one from bounds to solid real quick, and this one as well from bounds to solid, so we can start to see our tree taking shape. But the rotation doesn't look correct, so I guess I need to go to here again, turn off the show transparency, go to particle system, turn on object rotation. In rotation, enable that, change this one to normal. Oh, not really normal. I might say global Z, or nope, global X. That's the one. Cool, so I think that's looking good. Let's make the size of it a little bit bigger. So we'll double it, 0.1. And it's time to take a little bit more of a shape. Let's change it up to maybe 100. And I think we now have a better looking tree. But we can clearly see that this tree looks a whole lot more realistic to what we'd probably find in the real world compared to something like this. So let's now complete our tree and give it a realistic bark texture. For this one I'm going to be using this texture over here, the 3D scanned tree bark from textures.com. So go ahead and just download each of these textures. And let's go straight into the shading tab. For this one I'm going to hide the particle system for a second. And let's go into the shading tab. And for this one I'm going to include all the images that we just downloaded. So let's just drag in the albedo, let's drag in this one, the height, the normal, and the roughness. Okay, so let's start connecting things up. So I want to connect the roughness into the roughness. I want to connect the albedo into the base color. I'm going to connect the height into, well, actually let's add in a normal map, vector normal map, and connect the color into that. Change this one from sRGB to non-color, connect the normal into the normal, like so, and also connect for the height. We might do that a little bit differently. We'll just connect it directly into the displacement. So if I look at that rendered, it looks about right. Okay, so the final thing I need to do is fix up the UV mapping for this one. So let's go to UV editor, select Control L of this one, and this one as well, Control L, and this one as well, Control L, and this one, Control L, I guess this one as well. Just these main branches over here. Select these ones here, Control L, and let's select all these ones and go SY or SX. No, sorry, it should be SY. Okay, but again, we're not going to look at that in close up, so that's fine. Let's now give this a final render and call this one good. So for the final render, I'm just going to go back to the modeling tab. I'm going to be using a HDRI image. You can find any HDRI image that you like for your own scenes. You can try out hdriskies.com, download one of these ones, or you can go and search any of these ones. HDRI Heaven is quite good as well. This one's 100% free, so it gives you very realistic sky lighting. So I'm just going to use one of the preset ones that I have, and I'm just going to use a HDRI image that I used in the backyard course. Finally, I guess I don't need the sun lamp, but what I want to do is I want to use the lighting from the HDRI directly. So let's go to shading again and change this from object to world, and I want to use the power of the sun lamp as well. So where's the sun lamp in this case? Directly above. Okay, so let's move this aside over here. We're going to use converter math node, connect this directly into this, and say multiply, put that into strength, and then add in another one, Shift D, and we'll just hit add, and we might say 1, so we get a more realistic lighting. Finally, I'll just go ahead and go Shift S cursor to world origin, and I'll just add in a big plane like so. Okay, and finally we'll bring in a camera. Let's move it out like this, and let's focus on our tree a little bit better. Okay, and now for our tree, we just enable the particle system again. Oh, so this plane is somehow ended up in the clumped branches collection. So let's move that out of that collection real quick, and let's give this a render. Might increase the field of view of the camera to 35mm, or let's just focus a bit more. Cool, and let's have a render of that one and see what that looks like. And that's it. I'll pretty much let you decide for yourself which one looks a whole lot more realistic and a whole lot more believable for your 3D projects. Is it something that you would just generate straight out of the box, as a lot of newer 3D artists tend to do when they figure out the Sapling add-on for the first time? Or is it this approach where we actually take the time to plan out and find out the true characteristics of a realistic tree? So now you can pretty much go ahead and try to fill your rainforests or landscapes with these trees and see which one looks a whole lot more realistic and a whole lot more believable. I hope you found this video useful, and if you enjoyed this video and learned a lot, please go ahead and like, share and comment, and also subscribe to this channel if you want to see more videos like this. Thanks for watching.